Welcome to the Report, where we watch and talk about every episode of the Colbert Report from 2005 to 2014. That's a lot of episodes. I'm Nathaniel.
And I'm Alex.
And Colbert's guest on this episode is Al Sharpton.
And I said, does he go to run for president again? He'd actually only ran for president again once, but he did not run for president again. He said probably in 2007 that he would not.
What years did he run?
He ran in 2004, that was it.
That was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the first story is about Saiko's wedding. Saiko was the daughter of Emperor Akihito of Japan, younger sister of the current Emperor Naruhito.
So is Hito like the family part of the...
I'm not sure how it exactly works. I mean, posthumously the emperor is just known by the regnal name, like Showa or Heisei is Akihito's one. So
what's Hirohito's like regnal name?
Hirohito's is Showa. And Akihito's is Heisei. Naruhito's is Reiwa. They announce it before when they take over, not when it ends, I guess, so they choose it instead.
And what's the reason for that custom?
I know China did it too. I'm guessing they probably got it from them.
That's for like Yongle?
Yeah, like the Yongle Emperor.
Okay.
And like they're known in like the era, like you have like the Showa era and then the Heisei era.
Okay.
I mean, it's still like how your ID still says your birth date and then in what year of the reign of the emperor were you.
Is that so? They don't confuse the emperors?
I'm not sure.
Like, do they all get different regnal names?
They do.
So is it just so if like they don't? So it's not just like the second every time.
Maybe.
For example, like in England, they're born in the reign of King Charles would not necessarily.
Maybe. I mean, they don't usually. I don't know. We could probably move on.
Yeah.
Colbert says that even though it took place the same day that this would be recorded, he says he caught a red-eye flight to Japan to see it.
Yeah.
And he calls her Saki to show how close they are. Her husband was Yoshiki Kuroda, an urban planner in Tokyo. They usually wind up being important people, I think.
Yeah, this is true. Now, how closely followed is the royal family in Japan? Is it like the British royals?
Probably a little bit, but I'm not sure. It's probably fair. I mean, like, the era thing is still important, but it's hard to say. I mean, they can't do too much because of the restrictions put on them. Like, for example, you officially lose your... If you're a woman and you marry a commoner, you give up your title, but I'm pretty sure there isn't any nobility in Japan anymore apart from the royal family, so every woman in the royal family that marries will lose their royal title once they get married.
Was that restriction put on app? When was that Meiji
The nobility was eliminated after the war.
Okay. So do they do that just to stop the emperor from becoming too powerful?
Yeah, they removed pretty much everything in the about the imperial thing except for the direct.
Okay, so everything except for the fact that the emperor does still exist.
Although part of the trouble is that means that so far there's only one male heir left, but
and if
not one male heir left, but like only one young one so far. But
wasn't like in very, very like medieval Japan, that's how they would like noble families would gain influence with the emperors. They'd marry into the family.
The Fujiwaras and the Soga clans would all marry the emperor.
Yeah.
And Colbert calls it a Cinderella story in reverse, but without the mice.
Well, we don't know if there were any mice.
Yeah. And of course, Colbert says that it's not as interesting now that the emperor is no longer a god and commoners can look the emperor in the face. What's the point?
Is the emperor no longer a god? Or is
that was the big thing, is they had to announce that.
And they renounced all divinity?
I think so.
Is now, like, in terms, does the emperor still, like, the head of the Shinto?
No.
Religion? No?
No, I don't think so.
Is there an official head? No.
I don't think there was ever an official head of the Shinto religion, but, like, the emperor.
But, like, how do practitioners just suddenly stop?
I don't think that the emperor was officially part of it. I mean, the emperor was just... wasn't it more like... I mean, the UK is officially still part of the Church in England. It was probably more like that.
Yeah, but I mean...
Probably like, a slightly greater...
I mean, the emperor was still divine.
Yeah.
So it's I wonder, did the practitioners of
I don't know.
Shinto care?
Let's just move on. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure there were some people who cared. But when Colbert says he was invited because of his Yakuza connections, then it shows a picture of him with Yakuza tattoos.
Well, they weren't like in a perfectly collar line. Like those
I don't know. It was based. The original pic was taken by Watanabe Katsume in the 60s or 70s in the Kabukicho neighborhood. A lot of the criminals, like, it was presumably a real
photo
Yakuza member or something like that. And they said that's why he wears the suit and long sleeves all the time.
Did the Yakuza only get big after the war?
I don't know. They're probably like a mix of, like, it probably changed a bit.
Yeah.
And then he talks about his favorite part of the wedding with the bridesmaids, and then he just shows the clip where the members of the Japanese girl group Morning Musume are attacked by a monitor lizard.
He's shown this before on the
Which he's shown before on last Thursday.
Do you think he will keep showing it on the
Probably.
show?
Honestly, I feel like it's not quite as funny anymore. Like, I feel like Japanese TV is weird is kind of been a dead horse, kind of beating a dead horse nowadays.
Yeah, I think most people know that.
Yeah, and also honestly feels kind of stereotypical now, even though I'm not canceling Colbert. That's not till 2014.
Oh, yeah.
But at least he's going to probably cover Asia more than you would have expected for anything.
Yes,
because the next segment, the word is the Orient, which is 2 words, but it is not the first, because the first was Love Handles. That was the first, that was 2 words.
Yeah, and it will definitely not be the last.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he didn't try to make it at first the gimmick that it was actually just 1 word that didn't seem to mean anything until it was explained, but he probably realized that it would just be better.
Yeah.
I mean, later on, once the word stopped being a daily segment, the word would always be something kind of clever, would have to be a double meaning.
But right now it's the segment on the show. Kind of.
It says the Orient, or what the PC police call Asia. It's 4 little letters for 3 billion little people. George W. Bush is going on a trip to Asia. So
Asia still has 3 billion people?
More than that,
More than that now?
Probably 4 billion, but...
Now that India's growing?
Yeah, I mean, East Asia isn't really growing that much anymore, but India's still growing a little bit, so...
What's India's projected maximum population?
I don't know, probably not that much higher, but, it has, I think, but it has caught up to China at least, but...
Yeah.
It's all about Bush's trip to Asia, which had started that day and was going to last for a week. He's going to visit Japan, South Korea, China, and Mongolia.
Will this keep coming up on the show?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I haven't checked.
Yeah. When presidents go to Mongolia, where do they stay?
Not sure.
What do they visit in Mongolia? Do they fly in, or do they...
I mean, the presidents always fly in places, I'm pretty sure.
Is that the most secure way of travel?
Yeah, I'd say so. So it says Bush is not doing too well in North America, and his trip to South America had a few bumps, some flaming effigy type bumps, as the caption says.
In Argentina from...
Yeah, it was
2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think about 2 weeks ago, because it was November 3rd or November 7th. And Europe seems to think the president doesn't care what they think, but hey, who cares what they think? And as the captain says, not the president.
Yeah. Now, was there a trip between the South America and Asia trip, or did he take that week off?
I think so.
Rest?
I doubt he would have been taking that many trips, but I was looking at this.
Yeah. Is the Department of State in charge of planning these trips?
Probably.
Do you think they make an intern do it, or do you think they have
I don't think they would have it. Yeah, there were no trips in between the two.
Okay.
So it says they should at least thank Bush for the help he does to their flaming effigy industry. And he's going to say he's not even going to mention Africa, except just then. It says they got to get themselves back together before criticizing someone else. And the caption, sounds familiar, Charlene, bringing up his ex, Charlene, once again.
Well, except which is funny, because Africa would certainly love Bush.
Yeah, Africa is probably the place that benefited the most from Bush's foreign policy, so he would probably be welcomed pretty well there.
Yeah, so it might have been better for him to go there instead of Argentina, maybe.
Yeah. So then he says, Australia, I don't know if that's even a country or a continent. Make up your mind. As the caption says, it's a penal colony.
Is the general consensus now Oceania?
I'm not... I mean, Oceania is what they call it if they have to put it with, the other Pacific countries.
But generally, to me, that makes more sense than just saying Australia as a continent, right?
But I mean, it's kind of weird to think of Oceania as a continent. It's more just a group of countries.
But Australia, I don't think it's as... I mean, it's very big, but is it big enough to be a whole continent?
Yeah, I think seems like people think so, but it's hard to get...
Why not just group... But then where do you put the islands? Because they can't just be...
I mean, Oceania is the group for the grouping of countries' purposes.
What tectonic plate is Australia? Isn't part of India's?
It seems like it's mostly attached, but that might be slipping a bit. But
to India's tectonic plate?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says, so the last chance for Bush to try to find love is in Asia, next on Lifetime, as the caption goes. Then, of course, Colbert brings up George H.W. Bush Sr.'s famous visit to Japan where he threw up during the dinner.
What was he eating at the time?
Probably Japanese food of some sort.
Do we know if he threw up because of the food, or was it...
I'm not sure if the
was
food
it just like a bad plane trip?
Probably a bit of both. Yeah, and then he says, outcompeting your dad was good back in Skull and Bones, but it won't fly here. Mm-hmm. Skull and Bones, of course, being the Yale fraternity that the Bushes were part of.
What's the actual fraternity? Is it Skull and Bones?
Skull and Bones is the name.
No Greek letters?
Yeah, it's no Greek letters. Does
Yale not have Greek fraternities? Or?
It does, I think. It's just that I don't think it was quite established. And also maybe it's like elite enough that maybe it was kind of different. Like,
yeah.
And of course, John Kerry was also part of Skull and Bones, which I think got brought up during the campaign quite a bit.
Would that have been at the same time as either Bush?
It wasn't at the same time because I think Kerry was a slightly different age, but...
Okay. So, was Skull and Bones, like, named after pirates?
I don't know. I know they do claim to, like, collect skulls. Like, there was an old rumor that Skull and Bones members such as Prescott Bush, George H.W. Bush's father, had stolen the skull of Geronimo, but it's hard to know if that's true or not.
I assume Harvard started that one.
Maybe. And then he says, like, well, you're in China, you shouldn't bring up human rights. Captions Ixnay on the Ibit tag and says, it's considered rude there, you know.
So then, back then, Tibet was the main human rights violation.
I mean, yeah, probably. I mean, the Dalai Lama is a pretty obvious.
What's with happening with the Dalai Lama now?
I mean, I know the last thing I heard of is when he had to apologize for, like, sucking on a kid's tongue when he kissed him, but...
So Tenzin Gyatso's still...
Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be kind of odd once they have this second thing because there won't be a clear succession anymore, but...
Because wasn't the successor kidnapped?
Yeah, the Panchen Lama is in Chinese prison now, and they claim to have found a different one, so...
Okay, and they're not allowed to find a different one until the...
I mean, I guess they could, but like they say, it would kind of undermine the... Because, I mean, if it was the reincarnation of the old one, why would there be it?
Well, how can the reincarnation be alive? How can that... Right now.
No, he was the reincarnation of the previous Panchen Lama who was involved in finding the...
Oh, that's what the Panchen Lama does.
Yeah.
Okay. Who finds the Panchen Lama?
That was I think it's the Dalai Lama names the...
Okay, so it's like a cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it said, so in South Korea, you gotta tell the difference between that and North Korea. It reminds you of the fact, Sarah Palin famously did accidentally call South Korea North Korea during an interview once. But that's still...
This is before she...
Yeah, it's still to come, so couldn't have been...
I assume Colbert is a fan of Sarah Palin?
Yeah, I assume, at least a little bit.
On the show?
And it says, like... The trick is that the South is the ones with food. And it says once you're there, you shouldn't bring up their money that we owe them because then they might want it back.
Does the U.S. still owe South Korea money?
It was mostly, I think, China and South Korea. I mean, it is true that we owe them more money, I think, than most foreign nations, but it's not, like, anywhere near, like, a largest percentage of the debt.
Okay.
Although I haven't been keeping track.
Yeah.
And then it says once you're in China, you should bring back a DVD of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire because it hadn't come out yet. And I'm not sure this is around the same time. I know in 2005 there's also that famous Backstroke of the West bootleg DVD of Revenge of the Sith with the really funny translated subtitles.
Was it actually? It was, I assume, not the actual movie?
It was the actual movie, but the
that?
Subtitles were...
Okay.
Like, that's the one with the do not want when Darth Vader is screaming, no.
Okay. So...
Backstroke of the West is how they translated Revenge of the Sith, by the way.
Yeah. How?
I think they just looked at the characters and, like, Revenge is, like, going back on something or something, and I guess they used the characters they used for Sith. It seems like they picked their own characters rather than using, like, an official dub, so it seems like it was probably a unofficial translation of an unofficial Chinese subtitling.
Okay.
Because it seems like when they said, when they got Luke, they thought they were saying look, so... And then, like, Anakin's name gets translated as Allah Gold, and Obi-Wan is Ratio Tile. Yeah.
Don't bring back bird flu or pandas.
Yeah, that's what he demands. And then he talks about Nixon's panda names, which are Ling Ling and Sing Sing, which,
that's true. What happened to those pandas?
I mean, they eventually died.
Did they have children?
No, they didn't.
They didn't, as pandas usually don't.
Yeah, at least in zoos, it seems like they...
Yeah.
And then it says, if I wanted to know about panda mating, I have the internet, and the caption was linglinglust.com. According to the archive, by the 24th of November, it had been taken, but it was empty, so I doubt the staff had actually bought that one.
Yeah, that's not... There can't be anything good on a website named that.
Yeah. Colbert is opposed because he's anti-bear, though his are not technically bears, which I know was believed for a long time, because for a long time we believed they must have been closer related to red pandas. But now it's understood they are just related to bears, despite having similar diet and colors.
What are red pandas related to?
Red pandas are in their own family, although I forget which one they're closest related to.
Are they felids or?
No, they're in the the dog-like branch.
They're on the dog-like.
They are closer to, I think, mustelids, but
yeah.
even though their genus name literally means cat, even though their family name literally means cat-like, so...
It's a little confusing.
Yeah.
They're not close to raccoons at all?
I think they're somewhat close, but I'm not sure how much closer. And I actually did read a paper discussing why so many carnivores of that size have, like, eye mask type features, but that's too much of a tangent for this right now. And it says, so the hot Asian continent around your arm is going to make Europe jealous. And he brings it back to Charlene again.
Yep.
And then the next segment, which I'm surprised he found a reason to bring back, is bring him back or leave him dead. We're discussing which historical figures he would bring back or leave dead.
Asia edition.
The justification is that the Korean scientists talked about cloning an Afghan hound named Snoopy. Said not Snoopy because that would be another example of their copyright infringement. The whole thing is that even though I think Snoopy was really cloned, the cloning scientist in Korea was found to have been using ethically and scientifically dubious methods when he said that he had cloned human stem cells.
Okay.
There was a whole video about it on YouTube.
Yeah.
I saw.
Was this a big cloning breakthrough or no?
It seemed like a lot of it was that like the Korean press was pressured not to dig into him because of how big of an achievement for Korea it was.
The cloning? The dog cloning or the stem cell cloning?
The stem cell cloning. Like, especially because George W. Bush was trying to ban stem cell research, it would be like a big...
Yeah.
And then there are actually some kind of funny naturalistic things saying like, we developed our method of plucking stem cells based on holding chopsticks and things like that. And then it says, genetic engineering... They're going to start resurrecting the Asians because the only thing they have more of than living Asians are dead Asians.
Who would, like, South Korea resurrect if they could?
I'm not sure. Maybe Sejong the Great or Yi Shun-sin, probably.
Yeah.
Those would probably be like
would the current leadership of China, like, bring back Mao?
I don't know if they'd want to bring back
Or do you think they would know
Mao.
not to do that?
Yeah, I don't think they would want to do that.
Who would they bring back?
Maybe bring back Sun Yat-sen to see if he could reunify with Taiwan. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, I think we should have, every time a country gets brought up, we should figure out who they would revive. So from now on, on this show.
Maybe not. The title card, it seems like they have Shakespeare, Napoleon, and Caesar on there. And it says, okay, so the first ground rule we got to lay down is that if they're resurrected, they work for us first. We want that first taste of sweet unpaid zombie labor, he says. So the first person is Sun Tzu. And he says the 6th century BC, although he doesn't say that, Sun Tzu. Not the 3rd century AD Sun Tzu, who wrote on the congruency of integers. He stays dead because he's not an integer fan, Colbert. The picture is actually a picture of the famous Buddhist monk Bodhidharma. I don't think that the other Sun Tzu is famous enough to get any portraits done of him posthumously.
Sun Tzu is the first mathematician to discover
I'm not sure. It seems like the book has a Wikipedia page, but not like, the Tzu part just means like master, so it would be for anybody with the
master
family named Sun.
Was he related to Sun?
Maybe.
Famous one. Maybe.
So then he talks about how the passed from the art of war, competent appear to be incompetent, when you're effective appear to be ineffective. I'm going to look it up just to make sure that's real. It seems like it's real because something from MIT popped up and it seemed like... I could definitely imagine that being a fake quote, but it seems like
there's a lot of fake quotes from Art of War.
Yeah. I know, like, I do think it's... I don't know if you have thought it was funny, like, how commonly Art of War gets recommended to, like, financial or business type people, saying, like, they're going to learn a whole lot more about like mountaintop fortification techniques than you would ever get in business school, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not really that useful for business because a lot of it's common sense
kind of things.
It's like don't charge across a river,
probably,
unless you have to, and like don't be polite to your enemy.
I mean, you probably can be at sometimes, but
but like don't like try and win. Actually, losing is bad.
And it says finally someone who gets the president's strategy, the old switcheroo. And so they decided to bring him back. But then, I'm surprised he pointed out that Sun Tzu probably didn't actually exist. He's a myth, like Ben Franklin, which did get me laughing.
Yeah. No, Sun Tzu did exist, yes.
And I said the thing about him probably not existing is actually probably true because the thing they point out is that he's not actually mentioned in the historical texts of the battles he was supposedly at. So, I mean, there probably was some person from the Sun family who wrote it, but like all the biographical details about him were probably fictional.
Okay. So it's like, it's written by somebody who claimed to be...
Yeah.
Well, just the master son, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it might have been embellished by his descendants or something. Then is Qin Shi Huang, although it does seem like he pronounces it Kin, so I guess he didn't look up the pronunciation that deeply.
Or they sprung it out at the last minute.
The things he likes out of him is his famous burying of the scholars, saying he's my kind of guy. Saying, why don't you think of a way to breathe, smarty lungs?
Is that the myth thing, or did he actually do that?
It seems like they've disputed it a lot.
That feels like something that scholars who write stuff might write about somebody they don't like.
Yeah, it seems like that's probably part of it.
Man, this guy sucked. He buried people like us.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. And so then he says, too, is that he's good at building walls, like the Great Wall of China. Remember how Colorado Governor Bill Owens wanted a wall on the Mexican border. I know you wanted to know who was the first Americans to ask for a border wall, and they couldn't find that much evidence of it before they actually started building a border wall from 1909 to 1911.
I assume since then it's been kind of a constant
call. Or, like, back and forth. Because, for a while, most immigrants weren't coming from Mexico, so...
Yeah.
And I said, back then they only had to keep out, like, the Mongolians, the Manchurians, and maybe a whole bunch more. We want to keep out Mexicans who want to work for less than minimum wage, which is a lot harder.
Yeah.
Still, he decides to bring him back, and then he says, bring him back or leave him dead in Spanish. He says, too many of you understood that. Said, third, the band Asia.
Yeah.
Then he mentions where all the band members came from, which I sorted out.
Not Asia, right?
No, obviously it didn't come from Asia.
Well, yeah.
They're like the bands that they all came from. I think they're all British. But...
all British? Oh, well, then they're all the same.
Yeah. And so it says, on the plus side, they made heat of the moment. On the downside was everything else they made. I find it was kind of funny that they don't say on the minus side, but they do say on the plus side.
Why not?
I don't know.
It's just the linguistic.
And so then he makes like a whole bunch of song.
Well, wouldn't you say on the downside?
You would, but like that's. But then you would say on the up. But people do say either on the plus side. You could say people would say on the upside, but you also do hear on the plus side.
Well, minus it's 2 syllables.
Probably that's part of it.
That's double as many syllables if you need.
Yeah, of course. Probably I wonder how it's like in the languages where they don't have different words than more or less. Like Spanish and Pracer, there's say mas or menos.
Yeah, or mejor menor.
Yeah, that. And so then he makes a whole bunch of song puns on Asia songs, like Only Time Will Tell, Soul Survivor, The Smiles Left Your Eyes, and Don't Cry. And he says, I guess you didn't get that, so we must not be Asia fans. Yeah. So they just had to leave him dead. Yep. Now on to the Al Sharpton interview.
And all of the band Asia actually died at that time?
No, I'm pretty sure they're all still alive. The band had just broken up.
Oh, so bring back the band.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he discusses how like clashing egos had.
Yeah. Now on to the Al Sharpton interview.
Yeah, Al Sharpton had been like I guess civil rights activist from New York since the 80s, although it seems like he'd popped up in like all of the major like civil rights type things around that time, especially happened in New York. Yeah. Like the Crown Heights riot, which was like the conflict where like some black people died in like a Jewish neighborhood or something. So
yeah. Was he a reverend?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, he's been controversial. Like, one of the first things he lent his name to was a case in which some black woman in Westchester County claimed that she was violently assaulted by a mob, part of which included police officers. And then they did an investigation, which seemed to conclude that her story was false. And of course, I guess Al Sharpton got controversial because he was pretty insistent that they would turn out the other way. But so I think like his defense was like, like they found OJ not guilty too, but you don't seem to let go of that. So.
Yeah. Is Al Sharpton alive still? Or
he's still alive.
Still alive?
It's probably not as important anymore now that like I imagine like the Black Lives Matter type things have made like a new generation of things. Yeah, he's still around. Jesse Jackson was always I think a little bit bigger, but I think maybe after he had even more trouble in Al Sharpton. So yeah. He said that he had. The funny thing is, like the thing with both Colbert and Al Sharpton that I was familiar with before this was that when Al Sharpton didn't show up on the Daily Show once, Jon Stewart just asked Stephen Colbert all the questions he meant for Al Sharpton.
Was Al Sharpton running at the time for a race?
I'm not sure if this was when he was running or not. It could have been because that would have been when Colbert was on the Daily Show, but I forget.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I said that they last met on the 2004 campaign trail, which he claims was his Colbert's America Preach It. I'm not sure if maybe that was real or not.
Is there lore for the Colbert character?
There is somewhat, like he says that he was a local news reporter sometimes. Yeah. But it's unclear if this means he was or wasn't a Daily Show correspondent.
Also, of course, Charlene.
Yeah. Like it only points out like one time he references the Ricky Martin song She Bangs, which came out when he was still on the Daily Show. So does this mean that... Yeah. Yeah. Then when he says, we last met on the 2004 campaign, how'd that work out? I didn't keep up with the Dems that much, the Democrats that much. And of course he tells them that it didn't go out well. He says, but he kept the faith.
How long did it take Al Sharpton to drop out? Did he even get to Iowa?
I'm not sure. I'll just look that up. Al Sharpton... Oh, it says that he it says that he went into the South Carolina primaries, which probably made sense. That was probably the first early large amount of black voters in the Democratic primaries, but that didn't work. So
then dropped out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they said that, like, Colbert talks about having running for the state Senate, but Al Sharpton corrects him and points out he ran for the U.S. Senate in New York, 1988, 1992, and 1994.
Could he have won a state Senate seat, maybe?
Maybe in state Senate, yeah, but I'm guessing that's probably just a bit too... And then in 1997, he tried running for mayor of New York.
Yep.
I don't think he didn't win the primary for that either. It would have been against Giuliani, I guess, in general. And then he asks, like, is there anything left to run for now? Secretary General, which, as Al Sharpton points out, he can't mount a campaign for.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is they haven't made an American Secretary General, so they probably don't want to give it to any of the big countries. Yeah. Because that would probably seem unfair.
That makes sense.
Then Al Sharpton defends his campaign, saying that running is more than just winning. It's also bringing up the issues. And Al Sharpton mentions Iraq and public education. And Colbert is, how is losing defined? Is that just not bringing up the issues? And so Al Sharpton points to Iraq as his big issue. And Colbert says, should we just cut and run? And then Al Sharpton says, we shouldn't have gone in the first place. Of course.
Which
probably.
is the same as cutting and running, I feel. Practically and from a issue point.
Yeah. And he said, if Bush can see fake WMDs but not a real hurricane.
The audience cheers for this.
Yeah. And so then Colbert saying, in all fairness to the president, and also I was being fair, says, Katrina opened up a box. Who knew there was racism in the U.S.? And Colbert's like, only the people of those races. And if this starts, unless it was in one of the Daily Show sign-off segments, which I haven't watched since October, he brings up one of what'll be his running gags where he says, I don't see race. I don't know whose race anybody is, even myself. Although I know in the later ones he makes up funny reasons why he knows he's white.
Yeah. Well, I believe he says people tell me, right?
Yeah.
What race other people are.
And then Al Sharpton's like, that picture behind you, that's a white man. So, yeah.
Picture of Colbert, obviously.
Yeah, picture of Colbert. And
where is that? That's in the Smithsonian National Gallery?
One of them was in the National Portrait Gallery next to the bathroom, but I'm not sure if it's there anymore.
I hope it's still there.
Yeah. And so then Colbert asks, if we stop talking about racism, wouldn't it go away? And then it says, if we stop talking about food, would we stop being hungry? And so then Colbert says that might be good if you could lose a little weight. And I'm pretty sure Al Sharpton did lose a fair amount of weight, although he seemed like he'd already slimmed down a fair bit. Probably a little bit.
Okay.
I know on SNL, Kenan Thompson would portray him sometimes, even though I don't know, especially to contrast it on the one of them, the real Al Sharpton came on, so.
Yeah. Kenan Thompson's been around long enough that he could have portrayed Al Sharpton when he was relevant?
Probably a little bit, but he had a show on MSNBC, so he could still...
Okay.
I know in that one of his gags was that he kept thinking zip codes were letters, or report this to Lulu. And
okay.
That's kind of weird. Al Sharpton talks about when he went on a hunger strike to protest the bombing runs on the island of Vieques in Puerto Rico. Protest started in 1999 when a civilian wound up dying in one of them. It was in 2001 when Al Sharpton got arrested for it. And then it says there are a lot of people that were in it. Jesse Jackson was there too. There are also a lot of Puerto Ricans from the U.S., the representatives in Brooklyn.
How come we don't hear about this ever?
Yeah, it seems like it was successsaul, so that's probably...
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't that large of a thing, so probably... And as he brings up too, was that Bobby Kennedy Jr., I feel like they don't call him Bobby Kennedy anymore. Because the first time he shows up on the show, I know he will do an interview, and definitely one of the figures that's changed, as the Democrats have changed, shows how...
Yeah.
And it seems like Bobby RFK Jr. even gave one of his sons Vieques as a middle name.
Well, that's definitely not RFK the third.
Yeah.
Well, that one isn't, because
he'd
be RVK.
Yeah. It seems like just like his father, he had a lot of kids, so...
Yeah.
I think
are any of them in politics?
I think RFK Sr. had 10 kids, so...
No, and only one of them became...
I think a lot of them are... all of them are in politics. RFK Jr.'s never held elected office, I don't think, so...
But are the other ones in politics?
Yeah, I think so.
Any of them ever hold office?
Yeah, I think some of them did. I forget exactly which ones, but yeah, definitely some of them. And so then Colbert asks for some injustices to motivate him to lose weight. And Al Sharpton's I can certainly give you a list of injustices. And as you pointed out, Colbert's kind of funny where he turns from, in the other ones, the audience is on his side, but now the audience is against him during the interview.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think...
Yeah.
I think this interview, if somebody's actually saying something, it's a little different. But
and then we get the Freedom Fact, saying...
Every single person on Mount Rushmore is American.
Yeah.
What about the married ones?
That's what you ask. That's not in the original one, even though it probably would have been pretty funny.
Yeah.
All those presidents got married because...
Which president took the longest to get married that did get married?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Buchanan was the only single president.
Yeah.
President...
I mean, of the ones, probably Grover Cleveland, because he wasn't married when he got elected.
Okay. And he got married for the sake of being president?
I'm not sure. Why does it point out, like...
Wasn't his wife, like...
Yeah, his wife was his best friend's daughter, so...
Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, even at the time, that was pretty weird. Then we move on to the last segment, which is Formidable Opponent, where he debates himself.
Which is a fun segment,
yeah.
Always.
I found out it seems like this tie color looked different than the last time, was probably just because he probably does just pick different ties. And
yeah.
As I noticed in the credits, Brooks Brothers has, like, rights to make Colbert's suit.
Oh.
Yeah. And so the context was that the Senate had passed its anti-torture bill, which I talked about before, 90-9. I tried to check who voted against it. They were all Republicans, but it didn't seem like that interesting of a assortment of them. And so the White House threatened to veto it. I mean, it didn't happen. Yeah. Bush would sign it on December 30th.
You think when people vote against bills like that, they have it's their constituents?
I'm not sure.
Like, you think people write them letters and stuff, and they're like...
Maybe,
if they know the bill's going to pass, they might as well make a show looking good?
Probably. Oh, what's interesting is that he actually starts off the segment with the blue tie.
Mm.
I mean, it's not like the segment is ever going to be a surprise to the audience because he's going to come out in front of the green screen, but...
Yeah. Now, is the audience watching this on the TV?
I'm not sure. I would guess that he would just be standing out in front of a green screen during the whole thing, but...
But what is the audience looking at?
Just I'm guessing them looking at him in front of the green screen, but...
So they don't get to see it, how it looks put together?
I'm not sure. Maybe they do get to see it. I'm guessing they probably do see it live, so, I mean, it might be confusing to follow if you don't know which color is supposed to be which, so...
Yeah. But it also might be funny just to watch him debate himself.
Yeah. And so then he says, let's get down to brass tacks, or broken glass if you prefer. So then his argument... And so, like, first, like, Luke Colbert says, if we don't want to stoop to our enemy's level. And it says, if we don't stoop to our enemy's level, we'll lose to them in an even worse way by losing to them. And it says, it's also not cruel and unusual punishment if we do it all the time, then it becomes cruel and fairly usual. Yeah. So that means from a constitutional point of view, torture is a go.
But it's cruel or unusual, meaning either or.
No, it's cruel and unusual.
Oh,
Like, I mean, that's why the death penalty isn't automatically included, because at the time, everybody did that.
So it was usual.
Yeah.
Okay. And I assume, like I asked, what about unusual punishments that are not cruel?
Yeah, I assume that.
Those are allowed?
I assume.
Why don't we do more of those?
Probably because it would hard to establish they were fair. I'm not sure.
But, like, why not?
Okay. And...
I mean, Hammurabi, that worked pretty well for him. And he's like, we still know about Hammurabi, so...
And it says... And so then... the Colbert says, very well argued. It says, from you, that means a lot, which, of course, I mean, like, I don't think he's ever going to not admit that.
Stupid jokes.
Yeah. And it talks about, what about the international standing, to which Red Colbert says, I mean, that's peer pressure. Is that how, so, like, that's, like, your kids can just, like, smoke and have sex because their friends are doing it. Is that all you want to teach your children? And so then he gets him to admit to using torture by saying, hypothetically, what if terrorists are trying to detonate at the Rose Parade?
Yeah.
I know he said one time it seemed like he'd forgotten to, like, move back by the time it cut away, and No,
it's just because it cuts instantly, so he ends in a face.
Yeah.
He ends in a face because it's what he does, he's acting.
Yeah.
And then you just immediately cut over, so the other character starts with the face the last one ended with. Which, I mean, obviously, like, he can't do otherwise, but it's like, if you notice it, you kind of can't.
Yeah, I did notice there was, like, a 1 second cut to the other guy and then back, which I'm not sure why they did that. I'm guessing maybe just because they felt like they could. And so then it says, like, the parade starts in an hour, you must use torture, you have a tray of dental tools and a nail gun. It says, I've read that torture doesn't work. It says, sorry, the parade starts in 59 minutes. Give me the nail gun. It says, but now I feel dirty. It says, that's what people must never know. We'll tell people we're not torturing and do it anyway. Who tells anything about torturing? And you, sir, are a formidable opponent.
Yep.
Okay, this ran pretty long because it's been a while, but good one. Signing off.